Hello, my name is Jessica Asfoury, and I'm the Marketing and Communications intern at the NC State's Institute for Advanced Analytics. And I'm here today with Sarah Wotus, who is a 2020 graduate of the Master of Science in Analytics program.
Thanks. So good to meet you and be talking with you today.
Yes, thank you for coming. So to start off, I'm going to ask kind of a couple questions about your experience at the Institute, and then we'll kind of move into some more job career questions. But to begin, what is your greatest highlight from your time in the MSA program?
Yeah, this question was one that took a bit to reflect on. One, because it feels like so long ago at this point. But two, because there are so many great moments. And when trying to figure out what the greatest highlight of it all was, I think what kind of kept coming back to me is just the people. Like it's like not one specific memory, but the friendships that I made at the IAA, some of them have truly they're still with me today. I've been to multiple IA weddings at this point, and including one of my absolute best friends who got married in October of this last year. And yeah, I was a, bridesmaid in her wedding,
Mhm.
and it was just I think going through, I mean, as so many people know, the IA is it's 1 year, it's intense, you're learning a lot about analytics and yourself and working in teams and everything. And just to know that you have so many incredible people that are doing it along next to you. It really bonds you for life in a way. And so, yeah, I am just so thankful that everyone in that program was so open and dedicated and willing to just experience the craziness all together. And yeah, that is definitely when I look back at my time at the IA, it was yeah, it was truly the people that made me learn the most about myself and really supported me in, launching this career in analytics.
That's really great to hear. I feel like that's a common theme among people in the institute. Obviously, I'm not like a institute student, but from what I hear, it's a lot about how great the people are, and I think that's just really great that you still keep in touch and the weddings and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And also even more than just the students, the professors too, being able to build relationships with them and kind of knowing that they're here to support you even beyond the IA and everyone, in the career stuff,
Mm.
April and people like yourself. Yeah, it's really just a community.
And then, how has your experience at the IA helped you prepare for workplace challenges?
Yeah, this one was actually such a easy question because I think that something I've noticed about myself entering the workplace and being here is that I feel like I really have a good handle on how to explain technical topics to non-technical audiences, or even technical audiences, but kind of the program had such a great way of taking really complex topics, simplifying it, and making sure that, I think part of this is a factor of they don't just accept people that come from statistics or CS backgrounds or anything like that. There's such a wide
Mm.
range of students and people in the program that I think that it had such a beautiful way of taking machine learning, forecasting, all these different things, and really breaking it down piece by piece and making it super explainable. So, yeah, now in the world of AI and it's easier now more than ever for anyone to start to pick up coding and analytics and start to try their hand at it, which is so cool. But I think having this program and being able to really take technical topics and break it down has proved so worthwhile in my space, both when I was a consultant and had to talk to partners and clients about things. But even at my job now, I work a lot with researchers, or yeah, even other members of the engineering team. Just being able to lead lunch and learns and stuff like that has been really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I'm undergrad and I'm in the business analytics honors program, and I feel like that's one of the biggest things that's been really like emphasized is being able to bridge that gap between like the technical side and non-technical side and really just being able to like communicate, to whatever audience you need to.
Mhm.
So I'm
Totally.
really glad to hear that that's been a very good experience for you.
Yeah.
So, moving on to more kind of career stuff, what do you do in your role as a senior machine learning engineer at Sightline Climate?
Yeah.
And what does a typical day on the job, if you have one, look like for you?
Totally. So yeah, I'll start by just saying a little bit about what Sightline Climate is, because
Mm.
since it's a startup, I'm sure not a lot of people have heard of it. But we are a market intelligence platform that basically tries to capture the whole of the climate tech, clean energy, that whole space. So that looks like tracking new deals whenever a company raises, a Series A or B round, or if they IPO, tracking the projects that those companies are doing, whether that's, a new nuclear plant or carbon capture, or maybe even a data center and the energy that goes into supporting that data center, different contracts between companies, funds, climate specific funds that are raised. We're trying to capture the whole space, and then we're selling that data to investors, to big corporates, that use that to decide, their plans. Where do they want to invest? If they have certain sustainability goals, like what best supports them in achieving those. So it's a really cool company. I have been there now for 2.5 years, and I was pretty early. I was like the second engineer.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of what my job looked like was that whole platform that I just talked about started from a very manual point of view where researchers were just combing news articles, scanning the internet, trying to find as much information as possible. And they were pretty much uploading that data manually into our platform, which uh, took a lot of work, a lot of hours. And when I joined, it was how can we take that process and automate it? And so a lot of what I am in charge of still to this day is trying to communicate and work with researchers to understand their process of how they just find information about all these different sectors in climate, and then using AI, machine learning, using tools like AWS, dbt, Django, Elasticsearch, everything, like do all of this automation, and yeah, try to build data pipelines to ingest it all, and then we're enriching it, with some of our researchers more technical backgrounds, and yeah, and trying to almost normalize it in a way so that we have just a really clean central database that people can use in a really intuitive way. So that's a bit about what I do on a day-to-day basis. That looks like a combination of lots of meetings as usual, both within the engineering team, working through architecture, looking at our backlog of tickets that we have, doing some prioritization work, understanding just like how can we best serve the rest of the team and the clients. Then also having meetings with the rest of the team, understanding their processes, and their pain points, and going through the Slack channel where we have all of our different product feedback of all these things that people want, and starting to talk through those. And then yeah, after that, it's some hours of coding. That's looked very different, with the emergence of AI. It's a lot of talking with Claude and basically giving Claude Code more of the architecture and the plan. Um, and then after that, it's a lot of code review. So going through both my own code that I've reviewed, because we know that, those AI tools still aren't perfect. And so cleaning that up, as well as also reviewing the code of my colleagues. So that's pretty much what a day in the life looks like for me.
Cool. And then I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what kind of impact do you see your work having?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to be in the climate space, even since undergrad. I did a minor. And from a data point of view, climate is so unique, to a degree that there hasn't been this like normalized central way of collecting climate data. Like it's just everywhere, and different companies have different specialties and snippets of different pieces. And I think the really great thing about what Sightline's trying to do is just put that all together in one place in a clean way that really allows people to understand the landscape of climate. And, we think about things like solar and wind, and so sectors like that have been around for so long that do have a little bit more kind of clean, normalized data, more proof points of how it works, have become truly like what we like to call bankable sectors. Like people trust them and they're, willing to put their money there because it's stable. And we would love to just see other emerging climate tech sectors kind of continue along the same pattern as solar and wind and some of those, so that before we know it, we have a world that can be pretty easily powered by renewable energy.
Cool. I mean, definitely sounds like some meaningful work.
Mhm.
All right, and then this is our last question, but if you could give yourself one piece, your younger self, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, this is such a I don't want to say like easy question. It's one of those things where when you look in hindsight, you're like, oh, obviously I would want to do this, this, and this, but you
Mhm.
don't know it until, hindsight is 2020. So the one piece of advice I would give my younger self is just to like be more confident. Don't take life too seriously. I think that when I was in school, both, high school, undergrad, grad school, there's just, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform in a certain way. And because of that, sometimes just like walking into the room, I feel like I didn't have the same confidence that I do today. Kind of that feeling of, you might mess up, you might not know everything. There might be someone in the room that knows more about the topic you're about to talk about. But just knowing that if you come in, exude confidence, and there's just like, you just set yourself up so well to have amazing conversations, and it really shows, and it makes life fun and a bit easier. And yeah, I think that over the past, what is it now, 5, 6 years in the workplace, I've worked with people much older than me, people younger than me. The analytics space tends to be a lot of men. And I think that learning how to just walk in a room, even if it's, 95% male, or, people who all have way more work experience than you, being able to walk in with confidence and just owning yourself and who you are and your experience goes a really long way. So that's the advice I
I
give.
love that. I
Yeah.
feel like I definitely understand like the struggle of, being nervous about whatever, but I
Hmm.
agree. It's definitely like as long as you're just there, present, like
Hmm.
exuding confidence in a sense, like I think everything will be all right.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Well, I just want to thank you for your time and all these wonderful insights. And yeah,
Awesome. Thanks for, thinking of me and reaching out. It was so fun to reflect a bit on the IAA since it's been so long, and remember that it really is, the reason I'm where I'm at today. I really have everyone there to thank for, both setting me up career-wise, yeah, really preparing me for, to enter the workforce and, be a professional in the analytics space.